Okay, here's some pointers on how to install your Elftmann Match Pro trigger in a B&T APC300 or APC9 lower. I suppose an APC223 would be the same, but I don't own one, so I've never done it before. Whether you have a straight or a curved shoe trigger doesn't make any difference. The first step to get the process started here is remove your safety and also remove the trigger. Now, there's plenty of videos already on the internet about how to do just that, so I'm not going to repeat it in detail, but the essence of it is you take a small pin, a paper clip, lightly push in this hole that will remove the detent. In the fire mode, you can now slide this off, and then you can rotate and work your safety lever, pulling it out. There are two detents inside, one on this side, one on this side. Now, you notice that my safety, my right side safety, has been deleted. This is a product made by HB Industries, and also they make a reduced weight safety spring so that the safety is a little easier to turn. I run mine with one OEM spring on this side and one HBI spring on this side. I think that's the right amount of tension. 2 HBI springs is just too light, in my opinion. Okay, so we already see that I have a trigger installed. Let's go through the removal process. Already said, get the safety out of there, search YouTube, you'll find plenty of videos on how to do that. Your factory trigger is held in with pins, not screws. And you'll want to remove the hammer first. With the hammer in the forward position, you never want to fire the trigger, the hammer, up against the frame of the gun. When you press the trigger, bring it forward with your finger, okay? Now that it's forward, all you're going to do is take a punch and drive through first this pin. You can do it from either side, whatever works easiest for you. A metal rod, a Glock takedown tool, an actual punch set, whatever you need to push it out. It doesn't take an enormous amount of force, and if you have something underneath it, the edge of a wooden block, the edge of a workbench, whatever, it'll come straight through there. When the tension is off of it, the spring or the hammer will jump a little bit to get out of the way. Then you're going to repeat the process on the trigger. Those springs don't have nearly as much tension. When it comes out, you're done. Basically, the whole thing comes out. On some firearms, you're able to actually remove the hammer and the trigger without removing the safety, but that's not going to be the case here. So you will have to remove the safety. Okay, so you've got the safety out, you've got your trigger, and you have your hammer all removed. Now you insert the Elftmann trigger. So the first step to installing the trigger is going to be to take this small metal plate and place it inside, just over the trigger opening, drops in just like this. And the reason that you're doing that is because the way this trigger goes in is there's two small set screws in the recesses here. And those set screws exert downward force against the frame of the receiver. And this is plastic. And if you don't have something to help distribute that force, you are going to push those set screws right through, blowing out your lower receiver. Which is another way of saying, even with this installed, do not go overboard with tightening those screws. You need only to snug them into place. And frankly, I can't remember if it goes in like this or like that. I'm pretty sure it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it goes in like this, but I could be wrong. Point is, it'll be obvious to you when you have the trigger out. So you're going to drop the trigger in. You'll have it back in the cocked position. Just drop it in. Then you're going to use the screws that come with your trigger. Now, if you told Sure Shot Tactical, my FFL, and if we supplied the trigger for you that it's going in an APC9 or APC300, when we order the trigger from Elftmann, we pass that on to them, and they ensure that you'll get the long screws that go through here. The plastic receiver here is wider than a typical AR-15, so therefore we need to use extra long screws. So you'll get 4 long screws as well as 4 short screws with your order. So you're going to go ahead and insert those flat washers, lock washer, and screw into each hole, and just very, very loosely position them, just kind of finger tight. If for any reason the screws are not lining up with the holes, it's probably because the 2 vertical set screws are extending out a little bit past the bottom of the trigger. Take the Allen key that's supplied with the trigger and loosen those up a little bit so that the trigger will fit all the way down. So now that you have the 4 side screws in loosely, now's the time that you're going to tighten up the 2 downward set screws. And you're just going to snug those up just kind of till you feel the tension. But here's the trick to that. Those screws have lock or some sort of thread locker on them. Sometimes you will think that they are tight. In reality, all you're doing is binding against the thread locker. So before I ever even install the trigger, what I like to do is screw those screws in so that I see them protruding through the bottom a bit, and then back them off. And that way I know what they feel like. I kind of have a feel for the fluidity of turning them, so that when I go to lock the trigger in against the set plate, I know what to expect. Now, jumping ahead a little bit, a problem that you will have if you don't properly anchor those screws is that the trigger may not reset. You take a shot, bang, and of course the hammer should get reset back like this, and you have your finger on the trigger. And when you take your finger off the trigger, the hammer should go forward, but it doesn't. Or maybe it's slow to go forward. You've lifted your finger off the trigger, and it's just, you never hear that reset click. That is a good sign that those 2 set screws have either loosened, pretty unlikely, or maybe that they just never were installed tight to begin with. All right, so now that your 2 set screws are nice and snug, now you're going to tighten up the side screws. Likewise, get those nice and snug. And I don't know if Elftmann has a torque specification. I don't recall ever seeing one, but just go ahead and make sure that they're nice and tight. The final adjustment for you to make is this screw right here, and that's simply your trigger pull weight. I run mine at about 4 pounds. That's the weight that I like for call it a duty type grade rifle opposed to a precision rifle. So you can play around with that set screw. There are directions. I've read them somewhere, talks about each rotation, quarter of rotation, some unit of measurement. I don't recall what it was, that you turn the Allen key, and that will control the amount of tension. Now, I believe that the trigger's advertised that it can go all the way down to something like 2.5 pounds of tension. However, I've never been able to get it, or trigger weight, I should say, I've never been able to get it to be that low, nor would I want it that low. I think I've gotten it down to around 3 so pounds. Okay, a little bit of oil on your sears. Put your safety back in and take it out and shoot it.